Drama is never the beginning. It begins quietly, a small change inside of you, an uneasiness you no longer deny, a reality you no longer accept. When you quit betraying yourself to maintain harmony, something ancient starts to awaken, and your presence starts to thunder. Even if your voice is still quiet, you break emotional agreements that others never questioned, without raising a hand or using a harsh word. The responsibilities they secretly assigned you are no longer yours. When you do this, you turn into a mirror that is dangerous to them, but the cracks they tried so hard to conceal are reflected in this mirror, which does not flatter. Their perplexity is revealed by your clarity. Their restlessness is heightened by your silence. They are offended by the revelation, not by your progress. You bring to light what they have been attempting to bury for years. The portions of them that once dreamed, the part that yearned to speak, the part that broke silently and never healed, the parts they denied in order to survive, are reflected in you. Carl Jung believed that we frequently attack what we suppress in other people. The persona they have spent their lives creating is challenged by your open, honest, and aware presence. You revealed what was already hurt. You didn't cause them any harm. Under the mask, you become who you really are. You didn't transform into someone else. Furthermore, it is inexcusable for someone to require your silence in order to spare their own suffering. You're experiencing resistance rather than rejection. You're not being dismissed because you're mistaken, because you are free. You are being sent away. And everybody who is still bound by their delusions faces the danger of freedom. Their survival instincts take over when they detect your shift, your awakening, and they work to neutralize you rather than comprehend you, restoring the emotional equilibrium that kept them at ease. Even if it was based on deception was the goal, not reestablishing contact. This is the start of your rebirth, not the conclusion of your relationships. You will stop questioning what you did wrong and begin to appreciate what you did correctly the moment you recognize that sincerity is not always praised. It can even be punished. It feels empowering at first. The word you once feared the most is finally said. No, not in a hostile or hurtful way, but to safeguard the peaceful, long-neglected areas within you. Where you used to allow people to pass past you, you start drawing boundaries. You no longer say you're sorry for need room. To be understood, you no longer need to explain yourself excessively. To keep the peace, you stop bleeding. The air around you abruptly changes. Saying no to pain not only frees you, but it also activates something inside of other people. What they never dared to assert is exposed by your bounds. Their lack of respect for themselves is reflected in yours. Your silence reverberates in the parts of themselves they won't go to. Many opt for projection, the age-old means of survival, rather than introspection. They turn your refusal into treachery. Your silence is referred to as coldness. They refer to your tranquility as selfishness. Your mending requires them to face their own wounds, and they are not prepared to do so. Not because you have mistreated them. They make you the antagonist in a story that was never yours to bear, rather than confronting their repressed anguish. According to Carl Jung, fate is what is not made conscious. For many, their unconscious weapon is the anguish they never processed. You are targeted not for cruelty but for wholeness, for your boundaries, clarity, and refusal to compromise. They may more easily resist your growth than confront their ghosts because you represent what they shun. Here's an invitation, though. Don't shrink. Don't compromise your truth for palatable reasons. Don't compromise your morals in order to get favor. As your number is sacred, it's a gate. It is guidance rather than rejection. It is the line separating your former self from your current self. Allow their uneasiness to increase. Allow their tales to unfold. Allow them to experience what they require. However, you continue to walk. This is the emergence of self-respect, not the breakdown of connection. And those who are unable to meet you there were never genuinely in love with you. Rather, they were avoiding themselves by taking advantage of your quiet. The change eventually becomes seismic rather than subtle. It no longer occurs during casual discussions or quiet letdowns. It takes place deep within the family structure that molded you. Even if it gradually smothered you, the position they assigned you, the one that maintained order and made everyone else feel at ease, no longer fits you. Perhaps you were the sturdy one who kept back tears to bear everyone's burden, the one who was trustworthy, the one who never asked for too much, and the fixer. However, those were masks rather than merely roles. Masks put on you to prevent others from having to face their own vulnerability. Those masks no longer fit you when you recover. You begin to show feelings you were trained to repress. When you don't break anything, you stop repairing it. When things doesn't feel right, you no longer sit silently. Furthermore, it upsets the entire emotional ecosystem that depended on your obedience, not just the people in your immediate vicinity, because your family needed you to be that way, not simply how they saw you. They found calm in your stillness. They felt complete because of your perfection. Their delusions were maintained by your sacrifices. It feels like betrayal when you go beyond that, but it's not. It's telling the truth. After years of self-abandonment, the true you is now showing. And even though you might yearn for acceptance or understanding, not everyone will be prepared to meet the new you, that true, uncovered you. Some people will object. Some will snap. Some people will be more saddened by the thought of you than by your real presence. According to Carl Jung, individuation, or becoming entire, frequently involves rupture. You can no longer live inside someone else's narrative of who you ought to be, not because you wish to erase the past. The price of being authentic is this. However, it also marks the start of profound freedom, the freedom to live in accordance rather than in recognition, the freedom to let others down rather than to give up. Even if it rattles the foundation, keep selecting you. In particular, whether it does. Something odd occurs when you start to break free from old habits, resistance, not just from people but from the system as a whole. You may experience a tightening of all the threads in your universe. Discussions become chilly. Known faces turn away. It now feels like surveillance where it used to feel like a place. This isn't just an accident. It is a reaction of the system. Because the majority of families, groups, and civilizations are based on unwritten rules. Maintain harmony, don't change, don't inquire too much, and most definitely don't expand on the job you were given. These guidelines have been around for a long time and are frequently silently passed down through the generations. They are there to uphold order, not the truth. However, you upset that order when you heal, when you ask questions, when you say, "This ends with me." You won't continue to bleed because other people have decided not to mend their wounds. You start being erratic. Furthermore, uncertainty feels risky in control-based systems. It may be silent, it may manifest as guilt-tripping, passive aggression, or family members remarking, "You've changed," as if that's a crime. It may seem like loneliness, leaving behind customs or people you previously relied on. However, this exile is evidence that you are gaining your freedom, not a punishment. Individualization, according to Carl Jung, is a sacred uprising of consciousness rather than violence. You have to separate yourself from the fake in order to become your own self. False information will also attempt to follow you around. Because you are incorrect, you are not being sent away. Because you are no longer available for the emotional contracts that kept others asleep, you are being opposed. You've stopped shrinking to make other people feel large. You're no longer the silent one, the rescuer, or the scapegoat. It is painful. It is perplexing. However, it also frees. And eventually, your whole existence turns into a silent revolution, a portal, a route out for others who are still stuck. Not everybody will experience it, but that door is now there, because you did. At some point, your soul is unable to breathe beneath the facade, the kind grin, the pleasant quiet, the cultivated composure that formerly put people at ease while you quietly broke down within. Wearing the mask initially felt like a sign of love, obligation, and survival. However, it eventually became oppressive, a costume made out of fear and people-pleasing that no longer reflected your true self. Then you pause. Jokes that cause you pain make you quit laughing. To prevent confrontation, you quit nodding. To keep someone else comfortable, you cease acting like you're all right. The disguise comes off clearly, not with drama. You set a boundary. You express how you really feel. Instead of pleading to stay, you go. Truth is more important to you than peacekeeping. And when you do, they grieve, which is an unexpected outcome. The version of you who fulfilled the role they required, the one who remained silent so they never had to examine themselves, is the one who is grieving, not you. The person who took on stress, accepted responsibility, and bore the emotional burden of others without expecting anything in return. Their emotional safety net was that version of you. They feel abandoned now that you've put it down, not because you hurt them, but rather because you stopped hurting yourself for them. Your healing may seem like a betrayal to them. However, healing is reclamation, not betrayal. Regaining your completeness also means breaking a spell rather than just a habit, a delusion that being easy, agreeable, and unnoticeable was what made you valuable. You have edges to your voice now. There are limits to your quiet. People no longer feel superior or unchallenged by your presence. It is no longer possible to cast someone else's image onto you. You are no longer their mirror. Indeed, they might respond by becoming irate, aloof, or silent. However, they are actually lamenting the demise of a fantasy. Furthermore, despite their pleasant nature, fantasies are not love. Real healing starts here, when you decide to live your true self, regardless of whether you can persuade others to recognize it. A person who has become entire has an eerie quality, not because they are boisterous or combative, but rather because they exude a silent integrity that is impervious to manipulation. You stop bending to fit into broken places when you reclaim aspects of yourself that used to feel too much or insufficient, such as your voice, your anger, your softness, or your brilliance. And that makes all the difference. You are no longer only soft in submission or strong in times of disaster. Both of you are. Even when you cry, you remain strong. You talk and remain nice. You speak no with compassion and yes with authority. They were never able to master this harmony inside themselves. They spent years repressing what you now represent, which is why your presence now seems contradictory to people who are still experiencing emotional extremes. Maybe they learned to suppress their wrath, bury their emotions, act confident, or hide their sensitivity. They took sides among themselves. No, you didn't. The internal struggle they continue to conduct is therefore exposed by your very presence. What they were ordered to banish from themselves, they see in you. That reflection is also too unvarnished. They admire your shine, your tranquility, and your self-possession. They then reprimand, downplay, make fun of, or vanish. They don't know why they experience both wonder and contempt. However, you do, because you can recall what it was like to feel divided and to have to choose safety above the truth in order to survive. However, you also recall the day you made the decision to fully return home to yourself. It wasn't easy for you to get here. You mourned your phony self, sitting in the crucible of not being accepted, understood, or liked. Was you. When you quit playing Tining, you had to face the silence that followed. You discovered wholeness, which no one can offer you, in that hallowed silence. Now you enter armor-free rooms. You don't apologize when you speak. You love without fading away. That's your subdued revolt. Your emotional revolution is that. And even though some will attempt to divide you into categories that are simpler to categorize, you merge rather than fragment. You encourage others to follow suit by doing this. You send out the invitation regardless of whether they accept it or not. The storms around you stop reaching your core at a certain point in your healing process. You still have feelings. You are still concerned. However, your neurological system no longer conflates turmoil and love. Because you no longer respond, rather than because you are loud, your composed, grounded, unflinching, and unrepentant presence becomes the most dangerous thing in the room. You no longer merely move to the beats of disorder in order to gain acceptance. Your tranquility is disrupted in a world that is designed to elicit it. This is not detachment when someone blames you and you don't defend yourself, when someone doesn't show you affection and you don't deck, when the quiet grows icy and you don't seek out warmth at a cost. It's a form of holy constraint. You've learned to maintain your core like a delicate lit candle in the breeze. Back when they knew how to find you, they could press a button, get a response, guilt you, and you would collapse, retreat, and go away. They can't track you now, though. You're no longer on stage. The scripts are out of date. You've quit the game, not as a victim, but as someone who gave up on winning after finally seeing the game board. And they are unraveled by that uncertainty. Being calm is what makes you untouchable, not rage. You embrace space rather than yelling for it. You embrace your grief with reverence. You don't crumble to prove it. You trust who you have become. You don't defend it. This is inner balance's power. It's not very crisp. It's not hostile. It just is. According to Jung, a fully individuated individual lives in the complete spectrum, integrated and alive, transcending polarities such as right or wrong, strength or tenderness. You are now that, not influenced by guilt. Chaos did not entice me, not dependent on permission. You start with clarity. You react by being present. You chose peace as a statement, not as a means of escape. Additionally, this change may feel like a betrayal to others who previously depended on your emotional instability to maintain their illusion, but it's freedom for you. In the process of becoming, you come to the realization that not everyone was pulled to your truth. Your quiet attracted some, as long as you continued to be the version of yourself that gave them a sense of stability. They liked you. Love is not the kind that depends on you betraying yourself. Wearing the mask of affection is comfort, and the illusion vanishes along with that disguise when you eventually remove it. It feels like grief at first. You find out that the relationships you believed to be unconditional had unseen terms, and you grieve for them. You go over discussions again, and wonder if you mentioned something or not. However, you know in your heart that the rupture did not occur because you deteriorated. You became a real person, which is why it occurred. Fixing oneself to win love again is not the goal of healing. It's about having the guts to remain entire even when love leaves you. To feel big, some people needed you to remain small, to prevent their own development. Some people needed you to remain amiable, and their devotion changed to distance when you ceased playing those parts. Their adoration turned to quiet. They went into withdrawal. However, that quiet is space rather than empty. Make room for those who truly love you and can see you clearly. Make room for connections that don't force you to erase yourself. Breathing room without bending. Room to create a life that reflects your soul rather than your survival instincts. According to Jung, individuation is about fullness rather than perfection, and truth is necessary for wholeness. The fact is that not everyone is destined to accompany you. Not everybody is able to. Furthermore, releasing them is an act of spiritual honesty rather than cruelty. Their rejection is a sign of your freedom, not of your failure. You lost the circumstances that warped your love, not love itself. And something unique, a life that is ultimately yours, is born in that loss. This is more than just a tale of why turning inward made individuals aloof. It has nothing to do with family members remaining silent or friends betraying you. It is about a far deeper topic: what happens when your soul starts to awaken and breaks every unspoken agreement that let other people feel at ease. Your recovery was never solely yours. It was a signal, a break, a silent revolution that reverberated through time. Saying no to suffering changed a legacy in addition to establishing boundaries. You regained a reality that had been suppressed for generations. One that enabled you to live when you ceased acting as though you were what other people required. The sacred price of sincerity is this: it alters the emotional structure of everything around you in addition to changing you. It aches because of this. It can therefore feel isolating, because when we walk away from people, you're also walking away from emotional repression systems. Becoming who you really are is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as Jung reminded us. He did not, however, state that this privilege would be simple. He never said that there would be cheers along the way. He saw that going within will rock the very foundations of your external life. Individuation necessitates the death of false identities and the relationships that rely on them to survive. Nevertheless, something sacred starts to show through that shedding. To feel worthy, you no longer require approval from others. You quit pleading with people who have never tried to comprehend themselves. You quit requesting permission to be authentic. You encounter a more subdued version of yourself there, one that isn't worn out from acting and isn't always translating their reality into something that other people can understand. One that just is. This is the self you were destined to be. Not the one that is palatable or pleasing, but the one who is integrated. The person who can simultaneously be strong and tender. The one who feels alive without commotion and is able to stand in peace. The person who now understands oneself and doesn't worry about being misinterpreted. Indeed, there is a price for it. People will leave you. You'll no longer have delusions. The version of life that made you feel small and secure will be gone. However, you will receive your wholeness in exchange, which is something you can never lose. Therefore, the reason they despise you is not the question. Will you continue to select yourself now that you know the truth? When the road is empty, the crowd has subsided, and the cheering has ceased, will you still be moving forward? Because you are not walking alone if you do. Every version of yourself that was previously silenced walks with you. Every ancestor who yearned for this freedom walks beside you. You serve as a beacon of hope for people who are still terrified of the dark. Allow them to misinterpret you. Allow them to project. In their story, let them lament the mask you were not meant to wear. It was your destiny to write your own. Don't stop here if this message made you feel something. You will learn more about self-discovery, growth, and healing in the upcoming video. Your soul has been yearning for this breakthrough, and it could be it. Now tap into it. Click subscribe, enable notifications, and become a part of a community dedicated to honesty, reform, and real inner development. On this journey, you are not by yourself. We continue to evolve into the people we were always destined to be in the upcoming video, where I'll see you.